and welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
And we are here to talk about our favorite subject, Matt Rhule. Should he be fired? Or should the Panthers retain him? Hot button issue with Panthers fans, and I have a feeling I know where most of us land on this debate, but there are arguments both ways.
And I was probably the first out of us both kind of chiming in saying fire it. But the more I thought about it, there are a lot of good reasons to hold back and let them play out a third year and see if the team gets better. We're going to go over both of those. But first, we have a couple Panthers news just to quickly go over. Real quick, the Panthers have placed cornerback A.J. Boye on IR, so he's done for the season.
Yeah, that's a bummer. That really strong unit has turned into a mash unit at this point. Like
Well, JC
now we're starting Gilmore and Henderson, two guys that weren't even on the roster.
Yeah, and JC Horn has a potential of coming back still. He has that window, and I think he's still practicing.
I hope they don't bring him back at this point.
I don't either, but I mean, the way this coaching staff has brought people back and stuff like that. Speaking of bringing back, Sam Darnold is expected to play on Sunday. Not start, but play. I know we'll get into this more on the Bucks preview, but yeah.
I have not seen that. Is that
Matt Rhule has said
now?
that Sam Darnold will probably play on Sunday.
Is that like the way he's been saying PJ Walker is going to play and then PJ Walker doesn't play or PJ Walker does play, but it's at weird times?
I don't know. We'll get into this about Matt Rhule.
We're going to talk about Matt Rhule.
But
add this to the list.
I almost feel like he's starting to scapegoat Cam Newton. On purpose, so he could be like, well, him wasn't my guy.
One more piece of news here.
Yeah. The Panthers signed kicker Liram Harajalua. Nailed it. Off the Washington football team practice squad. Been on this team before on practice squad. I mean, he gets a tryout. Probably bring him into camp next year. So,
have you seen anything on Zane on his injury? I haven't seen if it's like in season ending or anything.
They haven't placed him on IR yet. The last thing I saw is probably a season-ending quad injury, but other than that, it's just been quiet since the injury occurred, really.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything definitive on that. Not that saying there's nothing out there. I just haven't seen it. But, I mean, at this point, they could bring in whoever. I just hope whoever they bring in can kick field goals. And, they ought to maybe even think about signing, some end of the roster guy that has kicked field goals in high school or something, just, a corner or.
Hey, at least they have a plan. At least they have a plan. This guy. Liram's going to be on this roster till the end of the season. I believe that's the way it is. If you sign someone off their practice squad, they have to be there for a minimum of like 6 games or so.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. Congratulations to him. And, it sucks that we lose Zane. He was one of the best kickers in the league over the last, 8-9 weeks. Whatever.
One of the few bright spots of the year for the Panthers.
One of the free successes, I guess, from the front office, bringing him in, for sure. So, all right, Matt Rhule, Jerry. Matt Rhule. Close to finishing out his second season here with Carolina. All right, went 5-11 year one, sitting at 5-9 in year two with 3 pretty tough games coming up. Would not be a surprise at all if the Panthers finish 5-12. 6-11 is probably best case scenario. Have you seen enough from Matt Rhule?
I believe I have, yes. I was going to suggest we kind of go through this. Before we go on to the reasons why we let him go, why I'm leaning to let him go. Let's go ahead and look at the reasons why I think we should keep him. Okay. Now, this was always projected as a 3-year rebuild from the day Matt Rhule was signed. They said year 3.
I think I think you and I certainly felt that way. Mm-hmm. David Tepper made it pretty clear when he hired Matt Rhule that this was a multi-year rebuild and that there could be some lean years before the Panthers start winning and start, vying for the playoffs and championships and things like that. So I think, 3 years was sort of where my mindset was in terms of when we would start winning.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think last year they may have overproduced on wins, if that was their real thought process.
Yeah, and we started out 3-0 this year, which got everyone, sort of false sense of, what the Panthers could be this year. And not just Panthers fans, all throughout the NFL, the talk was Sam Darnold, has been saved, and he really was. He was good all along, and he just was with the crappy Jets, and Joe Brady's a genius, and all this stuff after week 3 that we don't hear anymore. Yeah. Obviously, Joe Brady has since been fired. Sam Darnold was injured and benched for 5 weeks.
Sam Darnold took a nosedive after those 3-4 weeks. Like, he looked like the worst quarterback in the league. This team is setting up a future coach in a bad situation if they fire Matt Rhule. I mean, the new coach will have only 1 pick in the top 100. Free agency wise, I think they're only like $25 million over, of free agency money they could spend. With a bad offensive line, a bad quarterback situation, some coaches may not want to come here. That top tier coach that we may want, they could just look at this job and be like, there's no way I'm going to go there and succeed because of the roster. I mean,
which I think does lend its, that's a good argument for keeping Matt Rhule around one more year, is, maybe try to get this roster in a little better shape. See what he's got in year 3, because, if you look everywhere he's been, that 3rd year is where he kicks it on, is where the team is competitive. Right.
And you just handcuff them, say, hey, you're not allowed to be getting rid of all the next year's draft picks because this is your do or die year. I mean, as sad as that is. Yeah. And I'm in the belief that he does most of the personnel decisions. I think Fitterer is there to help facilitate what Matt Rhule wants. That's the way I view these. So
I think they're working together. I really don't think that Matt Rhule is like the puppet master, just basically telling Fitterer what to do, and then Fitterer goes out and does it. I do think they work together. I think Matt Rhule has a lot of say in those personnel decisions, and I think the head coach should. Honestly, it's his system. He's the one that should be, at least telling Fitterer what types of players, if not their names, that he needs. But yeah, I mean, this is year 1 of Fitterer. It's year 2 of Matt Rhule. Maybe give both of them an opportunity to grow together next year. And David Tepper's still in terms of how long he's owned the team, he's a young owner. Yeah, essentially, he hasn't owned the team but for 4 years. So. And that's still a young organization. Yeah,
and that's another thing that could go against, not wanting to fire him, because you want to give the new coach at least 3 years. Then that way, when you are hiring, you're looking for somebody, it doesn't look like you're ready to cut bait and switch. I've always thought a coach needs 3 years to really kind of establish him. I've never been a big fan of firing a coach after 1 or 2 years, especially 1, unless you're Urban Meyer, which you rightfully deserve that you get fired.
He basically fired himself.
Yeah. I mean,
no, I agree. And I've been advocating, really up until the last week or so, that I think Matt Rhule should be given a third year. You and I have sort of been on opposite sides of the fence on that, and now it feels like we're sort of switching sides of the fence a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will maintain that I will not be upset if Matt Rhule is back next year, and I will not be upset if Matt Rhule is fired. I just feel like I personally, I think if it was me and I was in David Tepper's shoes, I would probably keep Matt Rhule around for one more season.
Yeah.
That would be as the owner looking at it from that view. As the fan, if you want to start getting into the reasons why Matt Rhule maybe should be let go, I haven't seen any improvement.
I still have 2 more for keeping him here.
Oh my gosh, you really want to keep him around? Okay, well, all right.
No, I just was going through my list because, like I said, I was thinking about this. After firing Joe Brady, he needs to find another coordinator, and maybe that coordinator can help improve that offensive line, can help improve whoever is going to be the quarterback, because I don't think they're in the room right now. But, I mean, the offensive play calling has been atrocious. Even with the new coordinator, Nixon, calling the plays, it's been bad. It hasn't been as bad as with Brady. So maybe a new coordinator could bring that in next year. And the defense, they were abysmal last year at the beginning. And to where they are now, it's night and day, where they've rebuilt that defense, where I believe it could be a top 5 defense with a better offense and maybe another player, middle linebacker mostly, I'm calling out. So those are my reasons for wanting to keep him.
You have no more reasons for wanting to keep Matt Rhule.
No, okay. Now let's go into the laundry list of reasons to let him go.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say if Matt Rhule stays, would you, as David Tepper, tell Matt Rhule to bring in a new offensive coordinator? What if Matt Rhule wants to keep Jeff Nixon as his OC? How does that fly with you as David Tepper, the owner?
I would say this is your year. You do it all. I'm not going to force you to change coordinators and then fire you if the offense sucks again. But
and how does you, as the fan, Jerry, how would you feel about basically running it back with these same coordinators, the same coaching staff? Yeah, outside of Joe Brady, of course.
That was a finger gun to the head, because I do not think Jeff Nixon is a top-tier coordinator that's going to piece together. He was part of the staff that has the worst offensive line in the league, has one of the worst quarterback situations in the league, if not the worst. Because honestly, I would take Davis Mills right now, the way it looks like Houston.
Right now? Of course.
Yeah. I mean, Davis Mills looks halfway okay.
Yeah, I mean that backup in Baltimore has been looking really good. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of backups across the league that have played well.
Well, I was looking at just the worst quarterback situations in the league, and I just thought with Houston would be the top one. But I mean,
I think this is a point against Matt Rhule.
Yeah,
is when you're looking at these situations, these quarterback situations, and you see these backup quarterbacks having success in these teams that otherwise, you're talking Davis Mills and I don't remember the Baltimore QB's name,
Huntley,
but several
Tyler
across
Huntley.
Huntley, yeah, several across the league that have had to play and have played well. I mean, you saw in Arizona.
Yeah.
Their backup quarterback, I think, went 2-1 when Kyler Murray was out, or 3-1. And we've got PJ Walker for the last 2 years, who Matt Rhule is keeping around only because he's familiar with him.
Another reason to get rid of him. You keep PJ Washington around. Keep him around. Keep him around. Walker, sorry. Keep him around. Keep him around. And as soon as he has to start, you're scrambling to get more QBs. You brought in Matt Barkley to back him up. Then you go grab Cam Newton, and you don't want to play him. Then what was the point of keeping him? Why did you not go to Scott Fitter and say, hey, look, man, Will Greer and Walker, they're not going to be able to start in this league. We need to find somebody else. But no.
You draft somebody in the second or third round. There were several quarterbacks out there available. I mean, yeah, that to me, Matt Rhule, his obsession with only bringing in people that he knows. Like he even talked about it with Joe Brady, like how uncomfortable he was hiring Joe Brady because he didn't know Joe Brady. He didn't have experience with Joe Brady. So I'm wondering if this next OC, which is one of the reasons why I think Jeff Nixon could easily be the next OC, is just going to be somebody that Matt Rhule knows.
Yeah, I could see that. But whenever he was interviewing, he was selling the fact that Joe Brady was coming with him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think for sure the quarterback situation is a huge knock. The whole way they've handled this whole QB situation since Matt Rhule got here, letting go of Cam, bringing in Teddy Bridgewater, which both of us thought was a really weird thing to do at the time for that kind of money. When you honestly could have kept Cam, you could have kept Kyle Allen, you could have kept Heineke, you could have kept, a lot of the guys that we had. But they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. They paid him $20 million a year. Then they traded him, for a 6th-round pick after going out and getting the worst quarterback in the league the last 3 years in Sam Darnold and giving up, not a 1st-round pick, but still giving up substantial draft capital to get him. Now that hasn't worked out. You don't address your backup quarterback situation in the offseason, and Cam's back. Yeah. And we see why Cam was not here, because Cam is not good anymore, unfortunately. And now we're talking about maybe bringing Sam Darnold back into the equation. It's insane. It's incompetent.
That's exactly it. It's incompetent. I don't have anybody back there I trust, and he's throwing them under the bus. In press conferences, he's throwing Cam under the bus. He's talking about how he has to play 2 quarterbacks because Cam doesn't know the offense. Then tweak your damn offense. Tweak it.
Yeah, or just play PJ.
Yeah.
Or just play PJ. And let's see what PJ is.
Because you obviously absolutely adore PJ. Let's see it. Why?
Why not? I mean, and that's, you kind of touched on a little bit, but I want to go into a little further. Matt Rhule does not fully take responsibility for what has gone on in a game or, with the team in general. He blames injuries, which I hate. He blames players for their execution for certain decisions that they make, which I hate. When you look back at like Ron Rivera's press conferences, Ron Rivera was always a stand-up guy. He always took the bullet for his team. Always. He never threw Cam under the bus. And he could have, because Cam made some pretty terrible plays quite often. Now, he made some incredible plays quite often, but Matt Rhule is the first one to say, yeah, that was just poor execution. He shouldn't have made that play. This was the call. He did something else. That's on him. We can't turn the ball over. We can't, make these stupid mistakes. He should have just fallen on, just, over and over and over again. That's almost the first thing out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Whereas, that's not, to me, that's not how you build trust with your team.
Yeah, I have that. Not showing his leadership. It shows that it's going to divide him and the players anyways, because they know he's not in the front of them charging ahead, taking the bullets. No, he's behind them, using them as shields instead of saying, hey, I missed that. We did a bad play call on 4th down and 1, instead of blaming Cam Newton. I don't know what Cam saw. That was an RPO. He should have handed it off.
Right.
You don't do that. Again, this is going to separate you from the locker room. As much as we're berating Cam for not being Cam anymore, he's not a good quarterback in the league anymore. He's not a starting caliber quarterback. He still gets loves from other players. He talks. Other players love him. He's a great leader. He's always taking blame.
He's a great leader. Yep.
So you think that the team is going to appreciate that when they have a leader there that, they see taking everything on himself, energize his team, and then all of a sudden the coach throws him under the bus. Who do you think they're going to side with?
Yeah. I mean, say what you will about Cam, and we've said plenty. Cam's out there giving up his body every play. He's standing in the pocket. He's, making those tough runs. He's given it his all out there. And, unfortunately, he's now lost 12 games in a row as Panthers starting quarterback. He just doesn't have it anymore. But, man, I'm not blaming that guy for anything.
No.
Especially if I'm the head coach. But even as a fan, I'm appreciating what I'm seeing with Cam, given that it's probably the last time I'll see it, certainly in a Panthers uniform. We can criticize him, we can criticize some of the decisions he makes as fans, but as the coach, you can't do that.
No.
And that's one of the things that has bothered me about Matt Rhule since day one.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of not taking blames, this team has had no coaching adjustments in game. None. And he never takes responsibility for that, saying, hey, the Dallas game, they really kind of went to a run game heavy. We didn't really tweak it, as coaches. We didn't adjust to that fast enough or at all. Oh, they stopped our run game, so, well, never mind. At the beginning of the season, all they want to do was pass like 65% of the time. So they stopped our pass because our quarterback can't make up a good decision to save his life. So instead, we didn't switch over to running the ball, which was averaging 5-6 yards per carry. It just seems like they're not paying attention to the game.
Well, I think it's his philosophy, because he's been asked before, what is it about the third quarter that you guys just can't score and you can't stop anybody? And he says, we just need to do what we do. We just need to trust the process. We just need to. And no, you don't. You need, the process needs to change because the process isn't working. And I feel like Matt Rhule is sort of inflexible in his approach.
I could easily see that.
Yeah, I mean, we see it, and I called it out on our recap this week. The Panthers are the best team in the league in the first quarter.
Yeah,
they still haven't given up a score in the first drive, field goal or touchdown, I believe. And they are by far the best team in the league in the first quarter, point differential. I mean, almost whatever stat you want to look at. But after that, it just falls apart. And if you look at Matt Rhule's, first two seasons with the Panthers, they've started off well. Like even last year, they were 3-2. This year, 3-0. 5-5. And it's the third quarter of the season going into, the final part of the season that things fall apart. He's not able to adjust. When teams have good tape, he's not able to make those changes, not able to update the system. And that's a major problem. You see the best teams in the league come out after halftime and they can look completely different. And
Absolutely.
Things that weren't working before are working suddenly, or things that were working for the other team aren't working. That doesn't happen with the Panthers. Or at least it hasn't happened in these first two seasons of Matt Rhule. So that was always something I really liked about Ron Rivera was I knew in the third quarter there was always going to be a chance.
Third quarter of the season, fourth quarter.
Yeah,
you knew as much as it pained us to win a game against Sean Payton late in the season.
Right.
When the Saints have a first round bye, they would always play hard for Rivera. I always saw it. I always knew that team was not going to give up on Rivera. And I don't feel the same way about Matt Rhule. I feel like they're going to go out and play because they're professionals and this is their paycheck. They want to put good tape on the field.
Right.
But I don't feel that they're trying to win for him. They're not trying to go for him. And it's back to that leadership. Sorry.
Yeah, they don't seem to be having a lot of fun out there. And that was something certainly in the Cam Newton, Ron Rivera days, it seemed like the team was having a lot of fun. And they were fun to watch. They were doing, interesting things, and there were always smiles on the sideline. Now, this year, it just seems to be a bunch of frustration.
Yeah.
And, watch Matt Rhule after games, even in the middle of the week in his press conferences. He just looks like a wet dog. Like, he just looks depressed, and he's not saying anything that gives anybody any confidence at all, especially as a fan, or, for us as, content creators trying to talk about this team and find something positive to say. There isn't anything to say positive right now.
No, it looks like he's losing it. And this isn't right after games always, which I can understand being depressed, especially. No, this is middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday press conferences about, the upcoming week.
Yeah.
He looks rough. He looks bad. He looks like he's about on suicide watch, it looks like. It's like, dude, are you just done? Are you mentally and physically just done with trying to do this?
He has aged.
Yeah.
In these last 2 years. I mean, go back and watch some of his press conferences, even after losses from last year. I looked at a few of them, and he looks like a different guy. He sounds different. It's just, it doesn't seem like he's enjoying being here right now.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then that's obvious to players who have way more interaction with him than we do.
Yeah.
See him, listen to him and hear him talk way more than we do. If that's what's coming across to them, then no wonder we've lost, 9 out of our last 11 games. I mean, it's who wants to play for that?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't, but I don't know. It's hard to even watch.
No, I was going to say it's really hard for us. My wife, Sylvia, is a diehard Panther fan. And last week, she's like, I honestly don't want to watch this game. She's like, she's like, I'm going into every week expecting to lose. And you said that this will probably be a blowout, which it was. She's like, I don't want to watch this. It's going to make me just upset. She watched it. We watched it. And yeah. That was it.
Yeah. I mean, we love the Panthers. We're going to watch every game. We're going to live and die by every play, like we always do. But even the good things that happen just feel more like a relief than joy, But yeah, I mean, again, and I hate to compare him to Ron Rivera so much, but this is what we had for, 8-9 years with Rivera. He was like the best coach in the league for most of his tenure here in December, when the games truly mattered, when you're playoff push, right? That's when these Panthers teams really stepped up. And this team under Matt Rhule has just sort of fallen apart at these most important times of the season. Go ahead.
Legit question. Are the Panthers currently the worst team in the league?
No.
No. I'm not talking about on paper. I'm saying if we played a game right now, who do you think this Panthers team will win against?
I mean, I think the Panthers could beat a few teams. I think the Panthers could beat any team any given Sunday, of course. But, I mean, the Panthers are better than the Lions, I think.
Are you serious? The Lions have a better record in the past 3-4 weeks, and they're playing better teams.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 2 games the whole season.
Yeah,
and they tied the last few weeks, but
and they tied a game recently.
You don't think the Panthers could beat the Lions?
Honestly, the way they're playing, no, I don't.
Would you rather have Jared Goff as your quarterback?
This is my point, though.
I'm asking you. When we look at these quarterback situations, would you rather have Jared Goff? Would you rather have made the Jared Goff trade and brought him in than Sam Darnold? If you had to choose one of the two.
If I was going to choose one of those quarterbacks, I would choose Jared Goff. But I'm just saying, I think the Panthers have an overall better roster, but I don't. I think they would lose a game one-on-one against them, because I think that team, that Lions team, plays for Dave Campbell. I don't think this team plays for Matt Rhule.
I think in this scenario, I think you have to basically look at, if you play 10 games, how many do the Panthers win? How many do the Lions win? Right? And I think the Panthers probably win
Well,
more.
no, I'm not going to say
against the Lions.
Because at the beginning of the season, I would definitely pick this Panthers roster.
Sure.
Or this team. But right now, I would take the Lions.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what. The fact that we're even talking about it is an indictment on the team, because we're looking at the worst team in the league, the Jaguars. Certainly the Panthers could beat the Jaguars.
I think the Jaguars
with
are
everything
different.
going on there.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
The Jaguars, we would win.
That's a complete dumpster fire. But I mean, we lost to the Giants, and that's a bad team. We lost badly to the Giants.
We lost to the Eagles.
To the Eagles, but I think the Eagles they're not a bad team. They're at 500 now. I mean, they're right at the playoffs. The Vikings, kind of the same situation. They're right there at 500. I mean, the Panthers haven't beaten, other than that Arizona game, which was just weird. And by the way, that Arizona win looks a lot worse now that the Lions also blew them out. Last week. That Arizona win doesn't look quite as impressive now.
I mean,
but the fact that we beat the Jets week 1, but barely.
Yeah.
And could we beat the Jets now?
I don't know. I mean, the Jets are still pretty bad, but Zach Wilson has kind of grown up, matured a little bit. I really don't know if we would beat the Jets.
I mean, it's really sad.
Yeah.
And maybe that right there is all you need to hear from us, as to whether or not Matt Rhule should be fired, is we don't know if we can beat the Jets right now.
Jets or Lions.
I mean, we lost badly. These last few games have just not been close. The Falcons game ended up close, but that wasn't a close game, really. Got destroyed by the Dolphins, got destroyed by the Bills. And now we're 13-point underdogs going into a home game against the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Tough, man. This is tough.
And the Bucs just lost to the Saints. So, I mean.
Yeah. And they're then by far their worst game of the Tom Brady era. So they're going to come out and probably put up 50 on the Panthers Sunday.
I mean, geez.
I don't know, man. I mean, I know this wasn't really part of the podcast, but if you get rid of Matt Rhule, you're going to just have to take a chance on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really any guys that are just sitting out there waiting. There's no Bruce Arians that's just kind of waiting for a job.
No.
Bill Cowher. I hear people talk about Bill Cowher for the last 15 years. He's not coming back.
Bill Cowher hasn't coached in 15 years.
I saw someone mention Bill Cowher's name yesterday. Why did the Panthers hire Bill Cowher instead of Matt Rhule? Okay. Don't you think if Bill Cowher wanted to coach, he'd be coaching?
I mean, why not throw Herm Edwards' name out there at that point? I mean, at least he's coached
Tony Dungy's
recently.
name. I saw Tony Dungy's name yesterday.
You got to look at some of the younger coordinators here. I mean, you're also looking at guys that are in their 60s, 70s. Calm down, guys. Let's be real.
There are plenty of coordinators in the league that deserve a shot. I mean, Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Byron Leftwich is getting a lot of love.
Byron Leftwich. Although I would be cautious about that one. Just anybody that you're bringing in from, that Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is basically the offensive coordinator of that team. I mean, he's working with Leftwich.
Yeah.
But that's Tom Brady's system, for sure.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I'm not a big fan of
you're right.
Byron Leftwich.
He'll get looks.
Doug
there's some
Peterson,
defensive coordinators.
Former coach, Super Bowl winning coach from Philly. And he had some good years there. I mean, just had an issue with the quarterback situation.
Just a little bit of an issue there. But, there are guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of guys. I would not go back to college and mind a college coach again. What's the last one? I mean, Kingsbury, I guess, is working out now, but I guarantee you those Arizona fans wanted to fire him before the season.
Yeah. And then Pete Carroll was the only other one that I can think of in recent memory. Yes, Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, in recent memory. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Across history, there are success stories, of course. But, in recent, Urban Meyer didn't even last a season.
I have Matt Rhule, Urban Meyer, Chip Kelly,
Nick
Saban.
Kind of final thought here about Matt Rhule in terms of letting him go. I don't know that Matt Rhule wants to put in the work that is required in an NFL as an NFL head coach versus a college head coach. I mean, they're different. There's a lot of recruiting. There's a lot of different stuff a head coach has to do in a college coach. In the NFL, you just have to coach, but you have to put 16, 18 hours a day into it. That's what the most successful head coaches do. Matt Rhule was talking Monday. He hadn't even started looking at the Bucs yet. He doesn't even start looking at the next team until a Tuesday.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It may be too much. That's what Steve Spurrier said. He said when he left Washington, he goes, I had no time off. He goes, those guys don't take days off. I like having weekends. I like going fishing. I like golfing. And that's why he said he would not go back to the NFL.
Yeah, and Rhule's got two youngish kids. They're if not teenagers, they're close. I
thought they were pretty
he's got
young.
A young family.
Not
teenagers. I think he's got an older one, but I know his youngest kid's pretty young. But yeah, I mean, he's got a young family, and it's a lot of time. It's a huge time commitment. There is no other job in sports, I think, that is as demanding as an NFL head coach. You got 53 players plus the practice squad, plus guys you're bringing in all the time to manage a long season, now even longer, 17 games. And it's the sport with the most eyeballs on it all the time. The fans are always up your ass, constantly. It's got to be stressful.
And there's no off season now. For it,
there's no off season. So, maybe college is better for Matt Rhule. College is going to be better for a lot of guys, and sometimes they don't know that until they come try out the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it over and over and over again. Nick Saban, a prime example of a guy that could not cut it in the NFL, but is arguably the best college football coach in history.
Yeah.
So, no poor thinking about Matt Rhule if that's what it is for his case. Maybe he's a great college coach and just a terrible NFL coach. And if so, then Tepper needs to pull the plug and go ahead and send him back to college.
I mean, I don't know. I was kind of shocked he didn't get more attention in some of the big schools' firings.
Yeah, I'm surprised about that. Of course, we heard his name out there from media guys, but I do wonder if Matt Rhule just shut it down, or if Tepper shut it down, or what. I mean, that leads me to believe that he'll be back next year.
Contract buyout probably shut it down.
Yeah.
The university probably didn't want to buy out that contract. It's a huge contract, $7 million, $8 million a year for another, 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, gut feeling is Matt Rhule is back next year.
I agree. My want is I want him gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we, as fans, we want to win. We just want to win. And we're not winning right now. And we haven't won for a long time.
Yeah. Since we've been recording this podcast, we have not gone to the playoffs. Since Tepper has been an owner, he has not had a winning season. This is the first time in this Panthers history that it's going to be 4 losing seasons in a row. Never before happened. Never had back-to-back winning seasons, but now we have 4 losing seasons in a row.
Yeah.
And the franchise direct trajectory feels like it's going down, not up.
Right. And that's and that to me, that is why I want Matt Rhule fired. Right. Is that this time last year, I was feeling pretty good, honestly. Yeah. Things were looking up, that they were playing better. You could see the seeds that he had planted were starting to fruit a little bit. This year, we started out hot, a very fortunate schedule, and we even played well against the Cowboys. Even those next 3 losses, we lost by 8, 3, and 6 before we got dismantled by the Giants, which that was kind of a ball breaker right there. That one hurt.
Against a team you shouldn't have lost to.
The first 6 games really were, 3 wins, 3 losses, and the 3 losses were close. And it's just, since then it's been terrible. And this is why I want Matt Rhule gone, because it's, like you said, downward trajectory. I'm feeling worse about the franchise. I'm feeling depressed about the possibility of the future, with this team. Robbie Anderson has anyone. All right, let me ask you this. Final thing here. Who on this Panthers team has improved under Matt Rhule?
No one. Jeremy Chin, but he really didn't.
He drafted Jeremy Chin, though.
Yeah.
Who was here? And that's a hard question because a lot of guys have gone. But maybe Brian Burns. But
Shaq
he's just
Thompson.
Been given the opportunity. Shaq Thompson, yeah, for sure. Nobody on the offense.
Definitely not on the offense. For goodness sake.
Yeah, the offense has gotten worse. But yeah, the defense, as we talked about, is better. And they put a ton of time and resources into the defense. So maybe they just need to do that with the offense and things will be better. But
there's not much resources to go around now. They blew their load during the season this year.
Yeah, but as you and I have talked, the worse they do this season, the higher that first round pick is, they will be able to recoup some of those picks, right?
You could recoup picks, but you're not going to get a top tier left tackle or a quarterback.
Yeah.
This
seems to be, from what I've heard, a fairly deep O-line draft.
So was last year.
It's a shallow QB draft.
So was last year, and they did absolutely nothing to address it. Sorry, I'm getting back negative. Sorry. You were trying to sign off and everything.
No. I think that's fine. But hit us up in the comments if you're still listening, and let us know what you think. If Matt Rhule should be fired, I'm imagining most of you believe that he should be. But if you think he should stay, let us know why. And, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
We want to thank everyone for listening. A big shout out to our 37-minute club members there, Mark and Kirby. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. And if you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
We'll be back on Friday morning, I guess, with our preview of Carolina hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Until then, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.